While it seems like the Chicago Bulls have made changes to how they plan on running their offense in this upcoming season, we have to ask the question, what would a slow start mean for the Chicago Bulls in this upcoming season? And will the avoidance of the luxury tax eventually lead the Chicago Bulls to have to blow up the roster? We're going to talk about all that, plus dive into the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Sir Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And first up, I want to ask the question, right? This is something I was thinking. While a lot of us are excited about the upcoming Bulls season, is what would a slow start mean to the Chicago Bulls? And by slow start, I mean being considerably under 500 as the season goes on and progresses, and as we get towards the trade deadline. And when you add that in with kind of some of the things we've heard about DeMar DeRozan, right, that the Bulls could look to trade him if there's not an extension. When you look at like them listening to deals on Zach LaVine earlier this offseason, what would it really mean if the Chicago Bulls get off to a slow start? And that is something that AK and Eversley, I'm sure, are having to look at as far as they plot forth the future of this team. And we've already heard kind of some things that suggest that the Bulls are kind of that they have serious questions, right? When asked about the luxury tax, AK saying in media day that they have to make sure that this is the group of guys basically that are worth going into the luxury tax for, right? And what I take that as meaning is that before they continue to invest in an aging group and an aging core of players, is that they have to see some considerable success before they're willing to continue investing long-term assets to that. Now, that doesn't just mean the DeMar DeRozan extension. No, I don't think that only means that, right? But it means overall, what are you doing? When you look at this team, too, with the disabled player exception, we didn't use that. We didn't use our full mid-level exception. Right now, the Chicago Bulls are hard cap. Doesn't mean that they still can't go into the luxury tax. It just means that they can only go $6.4 million into the luxury tax. Right now, it's part of the reason why we waived Carlik Jones is the Bulls sit $1.7 million below the luxury tax line right now. So that means that the Bulls can get up to that luxury tax line. That's 1.7. And they have that $6.4 million that they can go over, right? So roughly about $8 million they have that they can go over the luxury tax with where their roster sits right now, with being hard capped and things like that. And so that leads to that disabled player exception that sits at $10.1 million that the Bulls could use most of that, right, to acquire a player either in the last year of their deal or a free agent if they decide to do so by the trade deadline. Could that be something that they can use to go into the luxury tax briefly this one season to add a player just to finish out this season if this team is competing, right? But that's a big question that this team has to ask and answer themselves. So a slow start specifically, let's focus on that. A slow start for this team could mean considerable changes need to be made. They sit so close up to that tax line. Now, they won't be next season, so if they theoretically extend DeMar DeRozan, that won't send them into the luxury tax. They'll have some other tough decisions to make on a couple of key things with the roster, but you have to think that the Bulls are really considering, and they're up until the point now where you either have to be ready to go to ownership and say that we feel like this is the group that's willing to go into luxury tax for. And I tell you what, if you go to Jerry Reinsdorf or Michael Reinsdorf, whoever it is, and you present and they approve you going into the luxury tax, you better be damn sure that this is the group to do it, because I tell you what, you're going to have to make so many changes the season after that if this team does not have whatever the level of success ownership is looking for to go into the luxury tax. And so the Bulls have a couple of things, right? We talked about one of them, DeMar DeRozan, his extension, or eventually moving on from DeMar DeRozan in a trade. That's something that you absolutely have to look at if a slow start comes from this team. Could the Bulls look to do something even more drastic in pulling the trigger finally on a Zach LaVine trade offer? Now, we know that their trade value for Zach LaVine remains extremely high, as it should be and as it always has been. But will they now look to move, maybe take the best available offer for that if this team continues to struggle, right? And then the last thing is blow it all up, which I've been very consistent in saying that there's a very it's a very small chance to none that the Chicago Bulls blow it all up before the offseason of 2025. I really do think they're going to really try to ride it out ride this wave until then. They have a couple of contracts coming off the books at that point in time. Could have a lot of cap space that summer of 2025, and that may be where they really look to evaluate wherever this team is before they make a decision on the next time. Could they look to move a young piece as well if this team gets off to a slow start, right? And so that, when you pair that with the luxury tax, you have to ask yourself, like, what is more likely? Do they, again, the slow start thing is separate, right? How this team could change due to the slow start could come of any of those young things. They can look to move off a young piece to bring in another veteran if they think that veteran is going to help push this team over the top. They could look to move the older players if they want to go younger. But eventually this team has to cross a bridge, and that is to decide if, as they get closer and push up more and more to that luxury tax line every single year, does that make a blow up more likely? And so we talked about it, right? They're hard capped this season. They're right up against a luxury tax of $1.7 million. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, are you limiting yourself in either direction? Whether it's going younger, right? Keep investing assets in a young core that, the ceiling may very well be the first round of the playoffs, maybe a second round if you get lucky, get the right matchup, have the right combination of players, things just hit the ceiling firing on all cylinders. But as you get closer to that, and as this team continues being that team that avoids the luxury tax, one thing has to happen or another. You eventually are going to go into that luxury tax, or you're going to limit yourself so much in your roster moves that you're really not progressing, or you have to, I guess it's three options, or you have to eventually blow it up to kind of reset that table and go in a different direction. Now, I think the Bulls are a couple of years until they absolutely have to make that decision. But as Zach LaVine pushes closer to 30, as DeMar DeRozan is over 30, him and Vooch get further and further away from the age of 30, you have to really ask yourself, where is this team really going? And that is some of the questions that this front office absolutely has to ask, and they'd be doing themselves a disservice if they're not honestly answering and evaluating this team in that area. And so let's hope this team doesn't get off to a slow start. Let's hope that all this, worrying that I'm doing and speculating right now all comes back to being a lot of nothing. And this team is performing, maybe above 500, maybe looking like they can get the 5th or 6th seed, right? If that happens, then it really does change the conversation. But until that question is answered in a solid way, anything's possible for the Chicago Bulls team, and we'll see where the season ends up taking the Bulls. But all right, with that being said, kind of my thoughts on that, let's go ahead and get into the mailbag for today. We got 4 voicemails we're going to get into. Let's get into this first one. This one's from Shay.
Yo, what's up, Haize? Look, I know the starting lineup has already been set, so I'm going to say this. I still think we need to play through Nikola Vucevic. Look, Kobe White is a decent ball handler and playmaker, but, man, he was giving out too many turnovers. And I feel like going up against like good teams, they gonna expose that. And you saw how the offense moved real smooth with Vooch at the helm of it. You know what I'm saying? Now again, look, I'm not saying that should be his role on a consistent basis, but I think we should do more playing through Vooch. And on the offensive end, let's do a little bit more ball movement, player movement, because let's face it, we don't have a point guard, and that's basically how we probably gonna get most of our points if we get wide open shots. But hey, that's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Should we play more through Nikola Vucevic? I do think that's going to happen regardless. I don't know how much is going to happen. Like you said and even alluded to in your voicemail, it's not going to be like an every play, every half-court situation, but you want to work that into your offense some just to take advantage of the skill set that you had. And like you said, like Kobe White, tremendous. And what he's done, how he's developed, where it seems like this season is going to go and progress for him. I do not want to take from any of that, but he's not a half-court playmaking point guard. He's just not. He can do some of that, right? He can pass well. He's making smarter decisions out there, but you don't really have that true half-court point guard, and that's fine, right? Because you do have a big like Nikola Vucevic who you can go off, run some things through. The frequency in which that happens, I think, is going to be based off the success that they have when they're running it and what teams they're playing at that time. But you absolutely can see a world in which your center's your pivot point, which then allows Zach LaVine, Kobe White to come off, screens, move around the ball, right? Hopefully at that point we're seeing a Patrick Williams that is moving off the ball more as well, and that creates seams, that creates wrinkles, that creates lanes, that creates open shots out on the perimeter. Everything has to hinge around ball movement, especially if you're a team that's operating with your center doing some playmaking for you. That is why that has to be so important. And so, you have to do that, right? So, I do think that the Bulls can be effective in it. It depends on how they use it. You don't want to become overly reliant on it because as much as Vooch can play make, he's not Nikola Jokic out there, right? He cannot run 90% of your plays from the center position. You just don't want to see it. But what Vooch is, he's a smart passer. He's always going to usually get the ball to the right player, right? Even if that doesn't mean they're in a position to score, but make the right play, right? To catch somebody at the right time. So that's kind of things you want to have, especially as you're becoming a team that is trying to move the ball around more and more. Working in those sets for Vooch is going to be important, especially with the personnel that we have both on the bench and in the starting lineup. How they get and generate that offense is going to be interesting to see, especially for that bench unit. But I don't disagree with you that we should see more playing through Vooch at times, but it just can't be your offense. It can be a very solid part of your offense, but it can't be your offense in and of itself. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Cornelius.
Hey, what's good, Haize? It's Cornelius, man. Like always, appreciate what you do, King. I want to talk to us, the fans, C-Red. I want to talk about something that we need to do that we ain't good at, and it's crazy, and I understand. It's called patience, and we need to have patience with this squad. I got a quick scenario to pick out. I want to ask people this, and we all know this is Bulls fans. How many years it took Jordan to win the championship, We all know the answer to that, to win his first championship. Now, we know he can do all the things, what he did to Boston, scoring, playoffs and all that. But I'm talking about the ultimate goal. How long did it take him? And I wonder, can we do that now? Like, I could just imagine if we drafted Jordan, we still got the Jordan of what he always been and always become, the airness and all that, but we have to wait 8 years. Same thing with P. Will. Same thing with Kobe. Like, we ain't learned from Jimmy Butler. We ain't learned from Laurie. Let's have some patience, y'all. Like, I really, really feel good about this team this year. And I know I've been optimistic that all year, but I really feel like this team is going to be special, and they're going to surprise a lot of people. We're going to be under the radar, and we're going to make some noise this year, man. Like I said, I get it. I understand. I see the inconsistencies, and I see the problems and the issues. But let's give these young kings a shot, man. Let's be patient. I know we've been waiting for over 25 years. I understand. I was 10 years old the last time when I saw the shot. I understand. But we got to, man. We got to. We really got to, y'all. We just can't be so quick to throw them away, man. And like I said, I know it's hard, Bulls fans. I know it's hard, but we can do it, y'all. Let's just sit here and be patient with these young kings and watch what happens, man. I bet you they'll surprise you. I bet you they gonna come through because I believe in them. I just want y'all to believe in them. All right, Haize. Peace. Appreciate you like always, King. Keep up the great content. Blessings.
Oh, man, in the microwave society that we live in, the one thing that most people don't want to have is patience. Because I tell you what, a lot of people were probably listening to your voicemail, and whether they responded in the comment section, responded in their own head, listening on the podcast side, they probably said to themselves, but we've already been waiting 10. We've already been waiting it's been so long since the Jordan era when we won our last title, right? And those things are valid, right? The Bulls fans, especially if you are a diehard Bulls fan and not somebody who rides the wave and comes in and out, it's been a long time, right? Yeah, the Derrick Rose era was probably the height of what we've had as a Bulls fandom, right? Since the Michael Jordan era, but that came crashing down really fast. And so, yeah, I get having patience, and we should have patience because it wasn't built in a day. And when you have a team, I think with the Chicago Bulls, that made their moves to try to win now, but that win now wasn't necessarily winning a championship now, it's just literally to win more games now. It works the patience of a fan base. And I think the fact that we haven't seen young players necessarily take the step that we need to or wanted to see from them yet in a Patrick Williams, we don't know what Dalen Terry is going to be, right? Ayo Dosunmu took a step back last season. So those things absolutely add to that frustration as well. But either way, here's what. You can have patience willingly, or you can be forced to have patience because us being impatient or not isn't going to make this team move any quicker. It's not going to make this team become a championship contender any quicker, right? But you do need to hold the front office accountable. Better decisions need to be made, whether that is for the potential in the picks that you draft and them progressing a little bit faster via player development department, which AK built out this season, or you need to draft better for players that are going to make more of an impact quicker, right? So that we can see that timeline a little bit quicker. So yes, it's going to take time. And I do think Bulls fans need to have more patience, as I'm sure a lot of people in almost every fan base does. It was not built and it won't be built or sustained in a day, even if it was built in a day, right? So it's going to take some time. And I think that this Bulls team now being more protective of their picks, building out a player development staff, using the Windy City Bulls as actually a farm system to actually develop talent again. May not be superstar talent, but even if you get a couple of high-level role players coming out the G League every 2 or 3 years, they come up and they really can develop and stuff for you until they get their first big contract. Hey, that's what you want to see. Those are things that you have to build an organization systematically, right? And a culture systematically that's going to develop, cultivate, and build talent. And so we're really just seeing AK and Eversley step into that in a meaningful way. And hopefully that continues and we see that start paying off sooner rather than later for the Chicago Bulls. At least I hope so, because listen, I'm tired of complaining. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of hearing a lot of Bulls fans complain too, but I understand it, right? We haven't gotten to where we wanted or thought we were going to get to. We had another height at the Lonzo when this team first came together and Lonzo was here, and that came crashing down via another point guard injury. So let's hope that the future looks much brighter than what our past has been. And hopefully those Bulls fans that aren't as patient and the Bulls fans that have been patient can eventually all come together and we can celebrate a team that hopefully at some point is winning at a high and consistent level that we're all happy with. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Casual Kelder.
Hold up now. I'm not Mr. Doom and complete gloom here, okay? I do think, this is my honest take on the Bulls, is the three guys, I'm not going to call them big three. They're not a big three because they're not that good. They don't have the supernova elite at all talent. Zach LaVine's a talented scorer, but he can't dribble enough to be the leader. And they're, we know based on the last 2 years that those three guys aren't getting you anywhere, to like the play-in, end of the play-in. So, where my concern comes in is, these young guys have to take a leap. And I'll go guy by guy, see if you disagree. Kobe White, yeah, he's made a leap. He went from a non-NBA player to an average player. That's a big deal. But he's still, he's an average player. I don't know if he's going to make another leap, but he's okay. He's a rotation player. Dalen Terry, they shouldn't give that guy another contract. Just get rid of him. He's not an NBA player. In his dances. I mean, come on now. I mean, I might be old, but they're very annoying, and I imagine he annoys his teammates with all his talking and yapping and being a terrible player. I get rid of Dalen Terry. Io, he's going to be your new Javonte Green role, I think. Little smaller than Javonte, but, he's not going to play point guard for you. But as far as a defender, rebounder, and the all-around slasher, guy who can get out and run, he's going to be a useful player for a while. I like Io. He's a keeper. And then there's Patrick Williams. He's not going to be his all-star. He's not going to be, a 20 point per game, 8 rebound, 5 assist guy that some people want. That's okay. The fourth pick, he's better than Jalen, or what's that guy's name? Johnson, the kid from Kansas, Josh Jackson. Oh no, that's a bust. Or Dragon Bender, that's a bust. He's not those guys. That's a fourth overall pick bust. He's also, not. He's not even like Lamar Odom, who also went 4th overall. He's just kind of slow. My take on Patrick is he processes the game very slowly. He cannot jump off of a reaction leap. He has a big issue with rebounding. He does not respond to the ball because he can't jump fast. He doesn't react to defenses fast, so he can't cut. And his shot takes him a while to load it. And he's scared to shoot if he's not wide open. I don't think he's that great a shooter. I think he only shoots shots that are wide open. 80% of his threes were unguarded. That percentage will go down if people start guarding him. I think he's a decent player. But the fact that AK and Eversley watched Florida State games that year he was there and came to the conclusion that Williams was a better prospect than.
All right, I got to stop you right there. First of all, you saying that Kobe went from a non-NBA player. Kobe was never a non-NBA player. This is the things that Kelder says that really highlight how much of a casual he is, because I'm sorry, that's just stupid. That was just a stupid comment, right? That's not to say that Kobe hasn't had his issues. And, Bulls fans at one point really thought that Kobe was going to be traded and he was going to be the odd man out because of the additional ball handlers and ball dominant players that we've been on. But Kobe White has never not been an NBA player. Came into the league his rookie year averaging 13 points per game on 39% shooting. Next year, improved that on 41% shooting, averaging 15 points per game, starting 54 of those games, right? And then the second year, his third year, right? Coming in after injury, only averaged 12.7 points per game, took a step back. But if you watch those games, you know that the growth of Kobe White as a better defender started in the 2021-22 season, and he helped, especially in that 9-game winning streak. The Bulls win a lot of games over that streak with his weak side defense and him taking a step up defensively. And then last season, Kobe White having probably his worst statistical season, but again, if you actually watch the games, having one of his better seasons in everything other than shooting and scoring the basketball, just in how he grew as a playmaker, as a decision maker, right? And as a passer, being a smarter, more intelligent player and defender. So to say that Kobe White was never an NBA player, I'm sorry, it really does shoot down a lot of what you say, because that's just one of the stupidest things that you could possibly say, that he went from a non-NBA player, right? Stupid. That's just stupid. Now, as far as the Patrick Williams, Devin Vassell thing, and listen, Kelder, you don't even watch enough NBA basketball to talk about basketball outside the stats. I know damn well you're not watching a lot of collegiate basketball, and so I know that you can't talk about what a player was as a prospect. Prospects are different than the results. You are a result base. You go off what has happened since then, and then you try to use that to inform how you talk about the past rather than actually being involved in it, because, again, you're a casual basketball fan, and you don't really understand or watch the game enough in this or collegiate basketball to talk about that. No, Patrick Williams was a better prospect than Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell went to a team that that actually, and a coach that knows how to develop, and he went to a team with not expectations, that he was able to get a lot of those developmental reps and shots to grow and flesh out his game. And shout out to Devin Vassell, because he's a monster. And I really do like the game that Devin Vassell has. Now, Patrick Williams has not hit that yet at the NBA level. And one could say that even though Devin Vassell was not as good of a prospect, he can absolutely end up being a better overall NBA player than Patrick Williams. And so that is something that you have. But here's what I'll challenge you with, Kelder, and I like to always ask you direct questions that you never respond to. I want you to look at this upcoming draft class, since you say who clearly is a better prospect, and I want you to tell me the top 10 prospects in that draft now, not wait until 2 or 3 years later, you've already seen what they've done in the NBA. And I'm not talking about this class that just got drafted. I'm talking about the upcoming draft class, the 2024 draft class. Go and tell me who the best prospects are in those guys. And I bet you we won't hear a voicemail back from that, because Kelder doesn't know that part of the game. But all right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. I have a question about the trade player exception. I was wondering, if after before the trade deadline and at the halfway point of the season, that the exception is for $10 million. What if an NBA player who's making $20 million a year gets traded after the halfway point? At that point, half their contract is already paid off. So would they fall under that $10 million guy? And lastly, I just heard you talk about signing Garrett Favors. I don't really think it changes anything for this team, because I think it's already set who's going to play what position and who's going to be the top 10 guys. My question to you is, do you think that's going to interfere with Sonogo and Julian Phillips?
Great question here from Reginald. First of all, we have a disabled player exception, not a trade exception. It can be used in trades, but it's not a trade exception. Just wanted to kind of clear that up. But keep in mind, the $10.1 million is for their base salary. It doesn't change based off where you are in the season. For example, a $20 million player doesn't all of a sudden become somebody you can acquire with a $10 million exception at the halfway part of the season where half their contract has been paid out. So it doesn't work that way. It's based off their base annual salary. So it doesn't change if you wait further down. You can't acquire the different players. So I just wanted to clarify that, since that was your question. Now, as far as Favors affecting Sonogo or Julian Phillips, I think he's coming here to help mentor those guys. So if it affects them, it can be in a positive way, because I think you're bringing a veteran down to that G League team for two players that you are invested in their growth, right? Julian Phillips, and I think Justin Lewis as well. That's another player. I don't know if you met him, but that it affects that. Keep in mind, he's only going to be in the G League. He's going to be down there, kind of an extension of that coach. And I do think he can definitely help a player like Sonogo. I think he can help him a lot. So I think that's the way that we're looking at Derek Favors to affect those guys. But hey, everyone, let me know what you guys think on all that down below. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end everything on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See Red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.